Hello, and welcome to the Cultural Catholic. Today I'm going to do a bit of a different episode. Here in the background, you'll see my very terrible and unskilled Magic the Gathering gameplay while I talk about something that is important to me, which is how, as Christians and Catholics of whatever stripe, we can navigate media that depicts magic and evil things in ways that might make it seem like they're actually good. So, why is this important? This is important because we live in a day and age where lots of different popular media is going to not necessarily come with a Christian worldview, and where certain evil things are going to be depicted in a weird way, or in a way that kind of is an inversion of the truth. And we need to have some way of navigating these depictions in the media that we interact with. And it's kind of all over the place. I mean, most notably, right, Harry Potter is the big example that is most prominent, I would say. And a lot of Christians sometimes take the position of complete withdrawal from those parts of the culture where it's just cut it out, don't touch it, it's all bad. To be fair, such critics do have a valid concern, namely that media, and I'm going to for now use Harry Potter as the example, does indeed show something evil as something good, namely the use of magic, which, as we all know, ultimately is from demons, right? In real life, magic, if it works, it's because there is a demon involved, right? That's how magic operates in real life, but in settings such as Harry Potter, magic is depicted differently, and magic is depicted as something that can be good. And so that seems to be a problem. One potential reaction to such a thing is just to say, okay, well then it's just bad and we're not going to have anything to do with it. And I think there's a point to be made there. But if I might offer the way I choose to navigate such things, I like to make a few more distinctions and some more solutions, so that way we don't have to be completely all in or all out. We can have a bit of a navigation, you can say, through these difficult waters. Okay, so first distinction I would like to make is media where magic is depicted as part of the natural world, magic as part of nature, as more of a tool, and then media where evil is glorified as good. And I think that this is a real difference, even though, as we've just discussed, all magic is evil, and in these media it's depicted as good. And I think that the distinction comes from how the magic operates within the logic of the fiction. So, for example, in Harry Potter and things like the example before you, Magic the Gathering, magic is essentially basically a kind of science. It's a part of the natural operation of the world. Whereas real life magic, it's not part of the natural operation of the world, right? It's a preternatural demonic influence. And it's not a neutral tool. So that's the first distinction. Now, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, because I think that in depictions of magic, where it is a neutral tool that's part of the natural order, I think that those depictions can still be okay. They can be okay. Let me give you an example. Fundamentally, there's nothing really different between the magic spells in Harry Potter and something like the super soldier serum in Captain America, according to the logic of the fiction. Now, the names are different, but according to the logic of the fiction, it's fundamentally interchangeable because both fictions use natural operations of the world that are intelligible and knowable and able to be manipulated by people as a kind of technology to accomplish things that people can't normally do. Essentially, in Harry Potter, I posit that magic is functionally equivalent to learning how electricity works and seeing people use different technologies to solve problems. It's not morally problematic in that way. Essentially, there isn't a difference between a potion in Marvel that makes you a super soldier and a potion in Harry Potter that turns you invisible. They're both using the natural laws of their fiction to accomplish something incredible. There's still the issue of the fact that they're calling it magic. So, in order to get around that kind of media where magic is depicted as a tool, I think really it's basically fine, assuming you have enough Christian formation and catechetical knowledge to know that real life magic is not like that. That real life magic is always from demons and not good. So long as that knowledge is there, that you can distinguish between the fiction world and the real world in terms of how these things operate, then you're fine. It's kind of like another example with Marvel. If you know that in real life, being exposed to lethal amounts of gamma radiation is not going to turn you into the Hulk, then you don't need to worry about people seeing depictions of the Hulk being turned into a giant green superhero through lethal amounts of gamma radiation and thinking, oh, that means I should go get a lethal amount of gamma radiation. No, right? It's just not what people are doing after going to see the Hulk or getting bitten by a bunch of spiders after seeing Spider-Man. Because we know that while that works in the fiction of this world, it doesn't work in the reality of our world. And so long as you can know the difference, then you're fine. And there's not really a risk of anything really bad coming, and you can enjoy the media for whatever good it does provide and offer you. So that's magic as kind of natural, magic as technology. But there's a different kind of media that I would like to describe as evil as the good, where it depicts evil things as actually being good and good things as actually being evil, but not in a way that functions as a separate logic to our world, but as an interpretation of the reality of our world. So two examples I would give there would be Good Omens and Has Been Hotel, both of which are Amazon properties. I'll give kind of just a general summary of what the plot of those shows are. So with Has Been Hotel, the general premise is that the devil's daughter wants to open up a hotel to rehabilitate sinners, so that way they can become good people and then get to heaven. And Good Omens, the general premise is that an angel and demon need to work together to stop the end of the world. Those are the two premises. Now, on its surface, those two premises actually don't sound that bad. Especially Has Been Hotel. That sounds like actually maybe a good idea or something that could be interesting. But the way that it actually gets executed is where I think it's more problematic than something like Harry Potter. Because both of those properties, I would argue, are not trying to operate in kind of different fictional rule sets, but are trying to help us reinterpret our reality. So let's talk about Has Been Hotel first. So in Has Been Hotel, the angels and heaven is actually full of really bad people. And hell is also full of really bad people. It's just sometimes you'll get some good people in both places. Most of the good people are actually in hell, surprisingly. But in both places, it's a bunch of bad people. Everyone's a bad person. Yes, quote-unquote good people go to heaven, but also bad people go to heaven, and most of the people are bad. It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of weird. And it's trying to show, in a way, the injustice of heaven, but not some sort of fictional heaven. I think it is trying to posit that real Christianity is actually evil and backwards and unjust and wrong. And that's where I think it gets problematic. And same thing with Good Omens. A lot of the messaging of the movie, a lot of the depiction of heaven is similar to Hazbin Hotel, where heaven is actually full of bad people. Heaven is full of really prideful, arrogant, stupid, uncaring, unloving, rude, inconsiderate angels that you don't want to be around. And hell is full of really hateful, evil, horrible people too. But sometimes you'll get good people in both, right? They have this same problem where actually heaven and hell are full of terrible people, but you're certain sets of the cast are going to like and be okay with, even though some of them are in heaven, some of them are in hell. And the idea being that fundamentally this is the case because real Christianity is actually fundamentally broken and backwards and unjust. Because, for example, in Good Omens, Crowley, the demon, is always giving some sort of question about why God does things in certain ways, or questioning the justice or morality or goodness of what the angels are doing. Now, that's not necessarily so bad. That is a very demon thing to do. But the problem comes from the fact that he's actually right. He's just right. There's no counterpoint from the angels. There's no, well, in God's wisdom, this is why things are the way they are. No, the demons are right. Crowley is right. God is just evil and unjust and foolish and prideful. That's the takeaway from the property. That's how it's depicted. The angels are just incompetent morons. They're like, oh, well, I'll just do whatever because God says so, and I don't really question things, right? So the demons are depicted as more noble and more right. And it's not trying to be like a separate functioning or separate logic or separate kind of heaven to the one we have in reality. Both of these properties are just trying to say, hey, Christianity is evil and wrong and backwards and silly. And that kind of narrative and that kind of structure to how these archetypes and symbols are used kind of makes it fundamentally, I think, irredeemable. You can't really fix the property. There's no reinterpretation or recontextualizing or re-understanding or catechetical formation or development as a Christian that you can do to really make these properties something that's now good. I think they're just irredeemable because they show evil as good and good as evil. And they're not trying to, like with Harry Potter, where magic is actually, according to the logic of the world, a fundamentally different thing to what we have. Rather, in those properties like Good Omens and Hazbin Hotel, the heaven and the hell is trying to help us reinterpret and better understand our reality, which it fails to do, and in fact gives us a perversion of how we are to see our reality. And so it's actually just bad. And the last thing to talk about would be media that isn't really based in the supernatural at all, but just shows natural evils as actually being good. Now, I don't really have any examples off the top of my head, except for maybe something like the top example I can think of is that Netflix documentary or series or movie that came out a while ago called Little Cuties that talked about, or really was about, the sexualization of children and depicting it in a kind of glorified way that, oh yes, it's actually good to depict children and minors and underage girls in a highly provocative way. And that is an example of something, a piece of media showing a natural evil and trying to depict it as a good thing. I could imagine some sort of TV show that talks about why it's actually really good to be in a polycule, or I don't know, a number of other things that are just not good things, but someone in the writer's room or director thought it was a good thing, and so they're going to depict this thing that's actually evil and show it as a good. With those kinds of media where a natural evil is depicted as a good thing or glorified as being something that you should strive to do, or depicted in a way that makes you want to pursue it, that would be another kind of irredeemable piece of media that doesn't have anything to do with the supernatural but shows the same principles as things like Good Omens, where it's actually depicting something as good that's actually evil, wherein it's trying to get you to reinterpret, re-understand something in reality as it's real in a perverse and disordered way, where it's trying to get you to reshape how you think about the real, not just put you in a fantasy world where things are fundamentally different. Last thing I'll end on is a little side note on how I like to run my Dungeons and Dragons games, since that's also somewhat relevant to this topic. So it might not be public knowledge to everyone watching, but I have been a dungeon master or a game master in a tabletop role playing game that's been going on for years and years now with the same group of people. Shout out if you guys are watching. I know you are hopefully faithful listeners that like, comment, and subscribe. But D&D runs into a lot of these same problems, but I classify it more into the Harry Potter camp because a lot of the time magic is just like, if you're a wizard, magic is just science. You're just really good at knowing things, and so that's how you do your magic. But other times, if you're like a warlock, you're actually making a pact with the demon. And in Dungeons and Dragons, some of the demons actually have real demon names. So what do? Well, the way I like to handle that kind of situation is I'll just make fictional evil demonic entities, so you don't have to worry about, calling upon real demons. You just make up fake ones. And then always be sure that there's some repercussion or consequence, or something bad is going to happen because you're doing this bad thing. That there is a cosmic balance and order and justice that gets imposed into what happens in the narrative. So that if you are a warlock, there's going to be stuff about being a warlock where you've got this pact with this fictional demon that you're not going to like, and your character's not going to like. And it's going to motivate you to try and, either have your character change or succumb to the evil. And so you have this preservation of the moral order. And that's how I like to do things there. But that's all the time we have today. So as usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.